All right, today we want to try to experiment to figure out what's better, a two-handed spear or spear and shield in different combinations. This one here has a partisan head on it. This could also be a hewing spear, or really the reason I took this is not only because it's very safe, but also because the bounce is a little bit more realistic, because there's a rattan staff that's quite light and there's a certain amount of weight to it, so this feels more appropriate in some ways. And also because that is awfully short for a two-handed spear. If we use both and compare, it should be fair, right? It really depends on how you hold it. That's always the thing with a spear. Like if it's too heavy or too long, you can easily change the balance. If you hold it all the way out here, that's going to be very awkward, right? So you can hold it wherever you want, as long as provided you have the space, and because we're talking duel, we do. Depending on what you've practiced the most, you may have strong opinions one way or the other, and you may have different conclusions. So the premise here is duel, because if we're talking battlefield, of course, you'd rather want that, unless you're in full armor, in which case you wouldn't really want a spear, in my opinion. If you're clad in steel from head to toe, you might as well be using a poleaxe or a halberd or something better than just a spear. So we're assuming this is either a one-on-one or like some sort of small group skirmish. The main thing here is you have way more control with two hands. 2 points of contact, there's a whole lot more you can do here. But of course, he's got the shield. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get around the shield. So depending on where the shield is, here I would wanna go for the body. You can kind of guide it to the side, that's the best chance, but it might still slip through. If you defend with a shield instead, it's probably a little easier, because I wouldn't even thrust there to begin with. That's kind of the thing, right? So if I see the shield is covering most, I have basically 2 options. Either I can thrust to the legs, leg shots, one thing, or I could try to create an angle and try to hit the side, but of course the spear is still there. So there's more options. There's 2 weapons as opposed to 1, but I have more control over the 1 weapon. I should have more reach, because if I do a sliding thrust, I can reach fairly far, right? Whereas if you try to use as much reach as you possibly can, so you're here, I've already run you through, whereas the point hasn't quite touched me yet. If you do underhand instead, you should have a bit more reach. This is your maximum reach. At this point, we're actually quite even, because I'm shortening my reach by having both hands on. If I wanted to use the most reach I could possibly use, then I'm all the way over here, but guess what happens? As soon as he displaces that, I'm completely wide open, because this is going to take a bit. If you kind of use your index finger and thumb, you can get a lot further. It's not as powerful as having all fingers on, but this is like, you can generate quite a bit of speed. Whenever people demonstrate like, oh, I can't reach, oh, come on. This is really not that hard. I could use strikes, which, with one hand, you could try, but it's just kind of no point, right? So I think my main strategy here would actually be attacking the spear, beating it aside and then coming in, right? Because this really takes a while to bring it back, but you still have the shield. So even if I do that, you could still defend with the shield, and then you can come back. Now there's one thing that I personally like, which is couching it, because that kind of gets rid of this problem. Like if I just hold it out and you beat it, right, this is really wide open. If I couch and you try to beat it, it's not moving. And not only that, I don't even have to allow him to hit it. So if you try to beat again, if I couch it, I can do a disengage like this. That, I don't really see that happening. Whereas this is quite a bit of control.
If the two-handed spearman can keep the shield wielding spearman at distance, it's going to be this person's fight all day, right? Because right? There's all of this happening, right? There's these types of, right? This kind of thing. And then I'm just working around that shield so that I can push in and stab here as well.
You see more.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely, like, at a distance, okay, I can see you if I don't do this.
Yeah.
My general opinion is when you're using a shield, you should really defend your head with the weapon, because otherwise, as soon as you do this, you see nothing.
No.
Right? Even if I try to peek over top, I see
there's nothing here. Everything's
I see your
obscured.
head, and that's about it. Your head and your shoulders, and it's just not enough. So it would definitely be better to defend with the weapon. Upstairs and everything else here, and then the legs, you just gotta move them, because this is so awkward. Different shield, which has, of course, somewhat different dynamics. You know, let's say I want to create an angle here. It's very easy for you to displace that and counter. Now, I could try to bait that. I could expect that, deflect, and then thrust like that, right? That's sure. I would have to use this pretty much as passive protection, is kind of how I feel about it, particularly like this. You know, the tip of the shield's kind of resting against my knee. Like, it's a pretty relaxed position. I can hold this for a long time. So I would defend up here with the spear, or try to, and everything else. There, again, if he goes to the leg, I have to evade that. If I step over here, I have pretty much a straight shot, right? That's assuming he doesn't do anything, which of course, why would you, right? So if I step over here, you're probably gonna reorient. One thing I notice here is my hands and arms are really safe. They're all the way back here, right? And I try not to go past the shield with the hand to not expose it. I might have to sometimes, but either way, those hands are right there. So I could potentially try to target the hand specifically. Something like feint high, and as soon as you defense against that, go low to the hands. But the hands are also small targets, so when you see this here, what is your instinct how to deal with that?
Go for that front leg, right? Change guard and go for your front leg. Because then I'm still protecting myself here, right? If I drop it down like this, I'm leaving myself open.
Yes. It depends on how quick the two fighters are. If you go for the leg, and I thrust while I retreat, that might be a good idea.
I would say the face is also a really juicy target here, though.
Exactly.
Right? You're gonna have to pull that shield up. So if I'm feinting to your face.
Yep. How am I gonna defend against a thrust to the face with this? This is really awkward. Like, if you do that, like, kind of, but couch not so bad, but still kind of weak compared to his two.
I mean, from here.
Yep. Exactly. Whereas, if I don't couch it and I try to defend, I have to catch it pretty low, which I can. This takes a long time. From this position all the way over here, it takes way too long.
And you've basically just put me right in the center of your body.
Yep. Get it with the shield, boom, right? That's a theory. It's definitely this, right? Well, now this is a risky one, because I get more reach, but I have no control over it. Whereas this is much stronger like that. So if I look at that, now the problem is I can't really pretend to stab here and then attack somewhere else because this is coming. What could I do? Something like here, expect the thrust, boom.
Yeah.
Good example of the extra power you get here.
I can see where you're thrusting.
Yes.
Right? I've got a clear line here.
Yep.
So I know that that's coming in there. Right? I'm not overly concerned about that.
That's the thing. You can either
If I've got it here, it's more of an issue.
Yeah, you can emphasize protection or vision.
Yeah.
Because like, if you hold it that way, you're way more open, but you see what's happening.
Holding it really close to the body, and this stays over top. Now I would be wearing some sort of iron greave here, right? And then we're talking like 12th century, early 13th, or even middle 13th. And I'll be holding it here. I can't really see my leg, my lead leg, I can't see it. But I'm really not worried about that because there's usually a hauberk that I'm wearing, like a long mail thing here down here protecting my side. I've got chausses underneath here, which is also mail protection again. And by the 13th century, I've got hard iron greaves on top of here. If someone hit you with like a mace to the knee, that's gonna be a problem, right? Someone hits you with like an axe to the knee, that's also gonna be a problem. But in terms of like the way how, like say you're throwing a spear and the spear is hitting that greave and the greave is already contoured, right? It's going to glance off, right? So it's really to deal with glancing blows, that kind of thing, or things at range and that sort of situation. But if I'm holding it out, I'm kind of now creating a profile to be able to get better line of sight.
I would argue that this is kind of more solid protection, the heater shield. And also it's sort of more efficient in the sense that there's less size, but you can use it more. Like if I think about this here, you have this kind of revolving door effect, which you can use to your advantage, but like we showed earlier, it can also be used against you. Someone can thrust it against it and open you up this way. So because this is a lot further from the hand, there's much more leverage that's working on the hand. Whereas there, you've got one point of contact on the arm here, and then the hand is holding it here. So there's very little that's actually protruding past those points of contact. So this is much harder to move. Pretty much you can't move it. I mean, you can pull it, but you can't really push it over to one side or the other. Anyway. If you're wondering why I scored these differently, it's because the two-handed thrust ended up shallower. This was an interesting one. Didn't go very far, wouldn't be lethal, but straight in my right eye. That's not good. Look at how close that was. Plenty more close calls to come. Insanely close. So Spear and Shield did better than I was expecting. We also tried some 2v1 and Longsword versus Spear and Shield. There was a lot of footage that I edited down into this. The extended edit, which ended up being a whopping 44 minutes, is what I put up as a thank you for patrons and members. So if you want to see that and support the channel, check out the links in the description below. So what are our conclusions? I actually like Spear and Shield more than I expected. But if I had the choice, particularly if we were talking something like a longer two-handed spear versus a shorter single-handed spear, then I definitely rather have the two-handed version, just because you have that much more control.
I really think it depends.
Of course.
The muscles that are involved in keeping the shield in position and moving it around, you really need to train those consistently, especially with like the heater shield it's got a little more mass to it, right? So like keeping it up in this sort of guard, that takes a lot out of your shoulder and your back just to hold it there. If I had more practice in building those muscles up and holding that, I would absolutely go Spear and Shield, because I'm gonna have the extra mobility there and the extra protection, and I want that extra protection. And if I'm holding it up like this, I've got my lines blocked off and I've got line of sight to you. Like that feels like it'd be good to me. I think I got the extra mobility. With the two-handed spear, it's like, yes, you've got the power, yes, you've got the speed, you've got the ability to shorten very quickly, which is very important, right? And it's because if somebody starts coming in at you and they close that distance, being able to shorten and stab them as they come in, that's huge. But I think I would prefer the added defensive mobility.
That's fair.
It's a toss-up for me based off of what situation I would be in.
Yeah.
Right. If I was in a duel, per se, I would probably take the heater shield with the short spear. If I was in a duel, and you'll see that in the footage. Like the amount of stuff you can do with it is great. It's very similar to using heater shield and sword. This is really good for pinning or trying to obscure. Like it takes away potential chances of offense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're trading vision. If I was going up against, say, someone that had a spear and shield, I'd probably take a two-handed spear. if I had the option,
Yeah.
right? Because I can literally just sit there and wait and play the parry game,
Yeah.
and then exploit it. The shield is going to cover a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
A longsword versus a smaller shield might be a different story. Might be a different story. But this, on the other hand, like, is just so much mass
Yep.
that your angles
True.
to try to strike are not there. So I try to go for some disabling shots instead of even taking on the spear altogether, because that's the trap in trying to take it on the spear. I try to go for this as much as try to get the hand of the spear wielder as much as I could, and then try to sneak behind this in this angle right here to try to catch here if I could.
And you just raised a good point about targeting the arm rather than the spear. Like, I tend more toward trying to beat the spear and then go in, but if you get the arm directly, then you're skipping that additional step.
skipping that.
Like, yes, it opens them up a lot, but if you get the arm directly, then you don't even have to do anything else.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
It is.
Especially around a shield
I do
this
find it
size.
easier to displace the spear, but if you can get the arm, is better.
They're really designed to incapacitate the weapon so that you can free the target zone that you want to hit. Whereas other shields go more on defense. So that shield's obviously more defensive.
Way more defense, yeah.
Because it's designed to take blows. Versus this is more of like, I'm trapping you.
That's a lot of observations here. So thank you so much for helping out with that. That's
Always a pleasure.
much appreciated. And I hope you liked it too, folks. Let me know what you think.